What is up? I am Miguel Antonio, and this is the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. On today's episode, we have Amy Tipton. She's a New York Times best-selling agent turned editor and owns and operates Feral Girl Books. Her passion to develop female writers through the collaborative process shines through, as well as her desire to create a life in the literary world that she actually enjoys. And she starts us out by sharing her story of suffering a stroke at age 30, just as she was starting her career as an agent in the literary world. It ended up affecting her speech and her ability to walk, but she shares how it did not distract her from carving out her own place in the industry. And now it's been 12 years past her stroke. It still affects her speech. It still affects her ability to walk. But it's been amazing to see the career that she has built and how she's just continuing looking forward to the future of who else she can help develop and help grow. You guys are going to love this.
The Live and Create podcast.
But
yeah. Were you in New York City or one of the boroughs? Or?
I was in well, I moved around a lot in New York, but I had my stroke when I was in Manhattan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I got lucky because I'd come from the subway and it would be a pain in the butt if this happened when I was underground, but I was above ground. It was walking to work in the morning.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
That's why I actually had a friend. She moved out there. She was a dancer and she lived in Queens and ended up at, I think she was 21, and she just felt off, and she walked out of her apartment in Queens and she just sat on the curb, had her head, like hands in her head. She said doesn't even know how long she was there. And her boyfriend walked up and found her there, and they found out she had a stroke. And
that's what happened to me. And that's exactly like I came out of the subway. I called my husband, then boyfriend. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I have a really bad headache. I just thought it was a hangover.
That's a hell of a hangover, right?
And I was like, and he was like, sit down. Like, can you go to work? And I'm like really like addicted to work, like I work really hard or whatever. And so when I was like, I don't know if I can get to work, he knew something was wrong and he knew right away what it was and called the ambulance. I sat there and like there was a fruit vendor, like a food guy serving stuff like by me, and he was like, do you want some water? Like, what's going on with you? And
like, so something's not right.
I'm okay. I'm just gonna sit here.
Wow. So if I understand it right, then because I really wanted to start out with your story of the stroke anyway, and I like you telling it. I figure let's just keep rolling in with it. Yeah. So you were literally going to work and got on the train, and your boyfriend was with you, or you called him? I missed that part.
I called him. Like he had left me when I was leaving to Queens or whatever, when I was leaving to get on the train to Manhattan. I have a weird thing where I like, if I get a new tattoo or if I change my hair or just whatever, like my parents goes wrong, are like different. I wouldn't say wrong, but if it's different, I'll like text a photo to my mom or something and say, hey, this is what it looked like, because it's a horror show up in my head. Like, gotcha. I'm like, worst case scenario, if something goes wrong, like I'm gonna tell you so you can identify the body.
Oh man.
And like, I told you my head is a horror show. And I've seen a lot of horror movies, a lot of thriller movies, a lot of Lifetime movies.
That'll do it to you right there.
Yeah. So I called my boyfriend because I was like, I feel really weird. Like I feel off. And, I have that thing. So I'm calling him. I'm telling him I have a headache. And I was like, basically, like, this is, if something happens to me, this is a headache and avenge me, like do something about it.
Avenge me. I love it.
So I was like, do something, anything. So he right away called the ambulance. He like knew
Huh.
something was wrong. A woman had stopped on her way to work, saw me on
Hmm.
the street corner. I think at that point I was almost convulsing, but I wasn't yet. Like
Okay.
she had me in her arms and she was holding me, and she even like picked up my phone and talked to my husband, then boyfriend.
Wow.
So yeah, everyone says New Yorkers are like mean or heartless. And I was like, I did not experience any of that. I think I traumatized that woman that on her way
For
to
her
work.
experiencing this with you.
Yeah. So I wanted to always go back to the scene of the crime or whatever and leave a note saying like I'm okay, because maybe she'll see it, but it never did.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and it's funny you say that too, because I'm sitting here thinking like, man, all my times in New York City, I have family that lives in Brooklyn, and then the last band I was with, we toured a lot, and that was one of our stops almost every single time we were out. Really, because we love the pizza, and my grandma cooks great empanadas, so
Anyway,
we'd try to get out there. But it almost sounds like maybe for New York City, they drop the pleasantries of the Midwest, but
yeah,
there's people who still give a shit about other people. Like
yeah, of
they're gonna
course.
come to your aid if you need it. And honestly, most of the people
Exactly.
we met were great in any
Yeah.
context. So that's amazing that they sat with you. And so if I understand the timeline, this was about 11-ish years ago.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, actually, it's to the day next week. It'll be
Oh
my
wow.
12th year anniversary.
Okay.
So, like
And what did
March
it
30th,
and at this time,
2009.
because you were a New York Times best-selling agent, right? Working in the literary
I
world.
am now. Like
You are.
I
Okay. So
I
at this time
barely
you're trying to
started
make it
my
happen.
career. Yeah. I didn't know what was gonna happen to me in my career. I've just become an
Hmm.
agent and I sold my first like a few books, like
Wow, so
here and
you were
there.
right in the beginning of it when this
Yeah.
thing almost
Like
takes you out.
all my authors either had never sold or just sold one book. And
Wow,
so
okay.
I had no idea if they were going to stay with me, if they were going to leave me. Like, I didn't know if I was going back to the office. I didn't know if I was going to work. Like, I had no clue. I mean, I was only 30.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it's something you don't expect at 30,
yeah,
you
you
know, and
don't think about those things as much as that's a horror show in my head. I never expected that.
right. You're like, if I could have done that instead of like the person hiding behind the shower curtain or
Yeah,
something, right?
right? Exactly.
What did the recovery process in the beginning look like for you?
It was weird. I spent like 6 weeks in the hospital. And
Mhm.
then after like those 6 weeks, it gave my mom, she was there like immediately the next day. And pretty much the whole time she'd come, she stayed and she fought for my rights. I had no insurance, I had nothing.
Yeah.
So she got me actually into a rehab program in Idaho where
Okay.
she lives. And I was like, ew, I don't want to go there. But,
You're like, I'm in the city. Why would I
yeah.
go to Idaho?
So I went, I flew to Idaho with her and I rehabbed for like 3 months. I did speech, which I'm not sure it worked, but it's better than it was, I
There's
guess.
been progress, is
Yeah,
what you're saying,
yeah,
right?
I couldn't. This is coming from a girl that did not speak in the hospital. I couldn't
Mhm.
speak. I
Wow.
had no like.
So you're just
I ran,
communicating like just through
yeah,
nodding
I
and
randomly
writing?
knew sign language. I randomly like I had dated someone way back in the day that taught me different signs and different
Hmm.
like alphabet letters and whatever. So I was communicating through that.
Right.
And they taught me how to do speech, how to walk, but I mean, I can use my cane and I can use the walker, but I like the wheelchair only because, well, it's faster and it gives me stability.
Right.
And it's easier because I know that walking would be great, but it's not my end goal. Like
What
I became a New York best time seller in a wheelchair. So I don't think I really need to walk in order to do what I do.
So if I hear you right, for you, you wanted to keep the focus on your career, even though you're in this
Yeah.
process of recovery. Is it, do you think of it as still ongoing right now? Is that something like,
Yes.
or is it a lot of like rewiring, trying to rewire the brain, those kind of things? Or obviously I've not had a stroke, so I don't know what that looks like, but
No, it's like it's always going to be a process and it's always going to be an ongoing thing with me. But I've decided, like, for me, I'd rather focus on reading and writing and furthering whatever career I have because I'm pretty cool without walking, without this therapy. And so I gave it up, but I do a lot of exercise on my house and I do a lot of like one of my speech therapists told me the best thing to do is sing along with the radio, and
okay,
that helps you with different words and forming your muscles, whatever.
interesting.
So I've been trying to do that, but
Do you
and
see
not
progress from
like
that?
chewing gum.
Do you,
Yeah,
at
I
all?
just feel like I have a really big mouth. So I like talk and yell and whatever all the time, but it may always be like this. And that's like something I had to learn to deal with. Like it's kind of like what you see is what you get, and that's it, you
Right.
know?
Well, and that I'm curious then, was it pretty early on, like when you're in the hospital or when you're in rehab, that you just said, my career is my focus. And so that's, even though all these things are going on with my body, that's what I'm going to focus on. Was there a moment or was it a
No, I think
gradual
I've
thing?
just always have been really driven about work or whatever. I throw myself into it. So I'm like super into like reading. I've always been a big reader. So yeah, like wherever my interests lie, that's what I'm gonna focus on.
Hmm.
That's just who I am. And I have a really good like attitude in a lot of ways. Like the PMA, the positive mental attitude.
Nice.
And so I have that. And I think that helps me like find humor in my day-to-day life because it's hard to be disabled. It's expensive. It's like are looked down upon
Hmm.
and people condescend to you. And yeah, you have to like let things get off your back.
Right.
So yeah, I
Well,
think I watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race. And that helps. It really did for some reason. It helped me get through so much.
just was it a distraction for you or was there something you found like inspiring in it?
Yeah, I think I found it inspiring in some ways because like these people also got looked down upon
Right.
and they have really like tragic tales in some cases. Like with their families
Hmm.
and whatnot, like being kicked out or being not accepted. I I like ate that up. I obviously I like weird things, but I really enjoyed like watching movies like The Impossible and Soul Surfer or whatever because I want to see tragic things happen to like good people and see how they overcome their abilities and or disabilities or whatever. Because in The
Interesting.
Impossible, like it's the Thai, like what was that? Like a flood or
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. I'll have to
yeah,
put that
they
on a
got
list.
it's like I don't remember what happened. It was a typhoon. It was something
Oh,
that
wait,
happened.
is that the one with the tsunami where the
It's
am I
just
thinking of the right one? Okay,
yeah,
yeah, I
so
have seen that one.
it's like
Yeah.
a family of like four, I think, where
Mhm.
they go separate ways, like in this tsunami, and how they all find each other at the end. I found that really inspiring because I'm
Hmm.
like, I could never survive a tsunami. But, like I survived a stroke. I was in the hospital next to an older lady who told me like she could never survive a stroke. And I'm looking at her and thinking she has cancer and I could never deal with that. So I mean the grass is always greener where you water it or
Right.
whatever. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and honestly, it's a good challenge even to myself because like I think of distractions that come about as an entrepreneur, as a musician, every day to where the distractions just seem to be so frustrating. But here you were, you had a stroke, which is way more like if I want to call it a distraction, that it seems like a really understatement, like a strong understatement. But even there, you just push through and continue to build this career. Now, as an agent, you go off on your own and you start your own company, Feral Girl, eh, or
Oh, yeah,
Feral Girl Books.
I left my agency Signature. I was
Mhm.
with, like, 2 other agents or whatever. I left them in 2018 and went on to do editorial services with Feral Girl Books, only for, like, women, all women, like GNC, like NB and whatever. So,
Right. Now,
basically, like, everyone except the women, the Whitney population.
say that again. Sorry, I was laughing
I
over.
said everyone except like the white male population
Right.
and more like the Trump male population.
You're like,
So,
I'll keep winnowing it down. And
yeah, like
what inspired you to go off on your own and do this?
I have always thought about it, but I really like got into big diversity conversations that are ongoing and both pushing. Like we need diverse books came up, and there are all these centered around the Me Too movement in 2016, and I've always been like a hardcore like feminist and riot girl, and I credit Kathleen Hanna, like growing up West Coast,
Mm,
and I was very much into like girls support girls. And so I don't know, it felt natural. Like I always knew I was gonna do something. And then I was like turning 40 almost. I was 39, but I was like, I'm not here to I had a stroke at 30. I'm not here to have a heart attack at 40. So like
just from the pace of the industry.
yeah, I was like, well, and just being like my own, like, yes, I had other agents, so I had support in my agency, but you are like one man band pretty much when you're on your own in your own office and you're reading and you're editing and you are selling foreign rights and you're doing film and you're doing audio and you're doing like everything,
Right.
like for this one person and their career, but you multiply that by like 20 because you don't just have one client, you have like multiple and you have multiple books and careers get bigger, hopefully. I mean, that's what
Right. That's
you
the
want,
goal, right?
And so I just figured like it's a lot of pressure onto me that I don't need. I don't need the responsibility. I
Hmm.
mean, I thought about opening up my own agency, but talking to another agent, a friend of mine who opened her own agency, I was like, I don't really want to do that. I'm not like a suit, like
Uh-huh.
I didn't go to school to be an accountant. I'm not like here to be a lawyer to read your contracts. I just
Right.
want to be creative. Like I want the collaboration of what I enjoy, like
Hmm.
brainstorming ideas and talking about scenes and switching out page 30 to page 80 and things like that. So it just felt natural in a lot of ways because I had a dream that was there was an imprint called Feral Girl Books. I
Hmm.
was like, I would totally send all of my books to that place. Like, and I wrote to people on Facebook as I'd start this. I really want someone to start this. And no one did, obviously. So I had to do it myself. And like Toni Morrison said, like, I think it was Toni, she said, like, if you're not seeing the book that you want written on the shelf, you have to write it yourself.
Yes.
So, like, I wasn't seeing Feral Girl books, and so I started it myself.
I love that it came out of a dream for you. It
Yeah, right.
as you were, during that process of hoping one day someone would start it and then you end up starting it, right? What does that phrase feral girl mean to you?
I don't know. I mean, feral, wild, and I did a lot of YA. I still do a lot of YA, like young adult, like teen books.
Oh, okay,
I
gotcha.
do like women's fiction and women's romance, a rom com, and whatever. I do adult books, but I was mainly known as a YA, like teen, young adult, like fiction agent. So that's why the girl is there. But feral, yeah, like I had to learn the hard way to not be so obsessed with being perfect and doing like things right. And because I'm really OCD in a lot of ways, like I'm very like I wash my hands and make sure I'm clean, and
Right.
my shirt has to be pressed, and you can't really do that as a disabled person, and you can't really worry about that in the hospital. So I had to like really learn to be comfortable with, yeah, I brushed my hair today, great. And I throw on a clean sweatshirt, yay.
So
But
comfortable with simply being a little wilder in a way and a little
yeah,
more
like
open and
I think Aria has always been a huge influence in some ways.
who is that?
Like from the Slits. She was from the Slits and she died of cancer. But anyway, she like was this crazy younger like musician in the 70s, and she had major dreads for hair, and she was like wild. She wore weird
Right.
outfits and it was really cool to watch. And she was a big influence when I was a kid, like a teenager, to see someone like that, because I wore weird things too. Like, but I don't know. I have a weird thing about style. Like I wanted to always present myself and like look good about present myself. And it's like I think I still look good, but I have to just kind of be like, hey, this is me. This is who I am, and you're getting me, whether you like it or not.
That's awesome. Well, it's cool that you chose to start a business in the way that you knew would bring ultimate joy to yourself. I that resonates with me because I'm in a season of like rebuilding. It's like during the time of COVID, this whole year of predominantly just laying low. I felt like I learned some really great lessons to where now, as I ramp things up and start to build other new things, I'm like, I keep asking the question. I don't know if I asked this before. I always just asked what the goal was, and I would do anything to get there. And now it's like, am I going to enjoy the process and trying to make sure that as I lay out the next steps for 2021, 2022 for myself, it's like I want to enjoy it. Maybe it's something like I'm 40. Maybe it's something right around 39, 40. Everyone like
Yeah.
just starts to go, I'm tired of the bullshit. Let me, what do I
Yeah.
actually enjoy? But it also, I think, in the creative world, it's like you were talking about, like, if you started your own agency, suddenly you would be doing all
Yeah,
the
more
shitty parts
creative
of the
stuff.
industry
Yeah,
constantly, and it would drown out the thing that you really do love, the creativity
exactly.
and the collaboration.
Yeah, and I just can't get behind that. And after I had a stroke, it's like you don't sweat the small stuff, like you just it's not that you don't care, but it's like certain things are not gonna bother you. And other things might bother you more, but I mean, I don't know, like, as much as I like writers looking at me as an agent or inviting me to panels or whatever, like there's a certain clout or fame or whatever that you get
Right.
off on. But that just didn't do it for me after a while. I mean, I couldn't really get on stage in my wheelchair anyway.
I gotcha.
So, like, and I couldn't navigate New York as easy as I
Mm,
used to. So that was also a big thing. It's like, I'm giving up New York. I lived there for a year after my disability.
yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, it's time. It's time for me to move. It's time for me to like grow up and do my own thing. Like, I moved and I still agented, and I've been agenting for a long time. And then I was like, you know what? It's time to move on. Like,
Hmm.
give all of it up. And I can see myself doing it again because life is like flux, it's always in flux. I'm
That's
always
true.
changing. I'm always going to be like me, sure, but I mean, who am I going to be when I'm 50 or 51 or whatever?
Well, and hopefully we're all evolving. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
I've shared a lot with my wife, and as we've been talking, like I've gone through so many transitions the last 20 years, mentally, spiritually, physically, all sorts of things, and
Yeah.
realizing that I literally, if I met who I was at 20, who I am now, like I don't even know if we'd be friends. Like just our worlds are so different, but ideally I continue to grow, and when I'm 50, 60, I can look back and like, oh, I've learned more. Hopefully I'll like the past a little bit more on some level,
Yeah.
but
Right.
but but if we're not growing, and we're not learning new things, then it seems like that's when people slowly die. And whether death
Yeah.
means locked in your house and just doing the same thing, for 20 years, or I think for some people it even puts them in a state of where they do slowly just wither away. And yeah, I don't think that's what we're going for.
Yeah. No, I hope not.
Now, women in the literary world, right? And so, like for me, I'm the white dude. Like I'm Puerto Rican, but I present and live as a white guy, because most people I have to explain to them like my name is Miguel and I'm Puerto Rican, blah blah. And so, one thing I've learned talking about the transitions over 20 years, one thing I just always thought the world was equal. I always thought everything was fine because guess what? It was fucking fine for me.
Yeah.
But the more stories I hear of friends who are minorities, different genders, different sexual preferences, all those, I've learned so much over the last 20 years to see the world does not operate in an equal way. And so I'm curious, like as you work, starting Feral Girl, as you worked in the industry as an agent, are there any stories that stick out to you that might help kind of pull back the curtain and say like this is how what some of the struggles that women see within the literary industry?
Well, I can tell you, it's really hard as a female writer to break out, to be an overnight success. I know that like overnight success doesn't happen for anyone really. Like you're
Right.
not like
10 years in the
suddenly
making, right?
overnight. Yeah, right. It takes a long time. But for women, you aren't going to break out in the same way. It might take you 4 books or 5 books or 6 books to have that big breakout moment where you make the New York Times or you've earned your money out, like they give you fans, and then you have to sell that many books back,
Hmm.
and then plus some to make money. But it takes a really like a big effort for women in this industry. So I don't want anyone to be erased or forgotten or left behind. So that's why I am coming into this. I mean, like I said, Idris Elba, like he talked about diversity and said it's not just race, it's sexuality. And disability and age, and it's about a lot of different things, and really, like, it's about diversity of thought. Like, if you're gonna have someone like that thinks all of these things, that incorporates all of these ideas, no one's gonna be left out. And that is why I am providing the service to
Yeah, and that
people.
it was Idris Elba, right? That said that quote.
Yeah, he said the quote. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce the name, but you
Yeah,
know it.
I'm sorry if he's listened to the podcast. I apologize. If he's listening to
I
the
don't know
podcast, let me know. We need to talk. But
either.
but yeah, that it is a powerful thing as I look at culture and how it continues to shift. I feel like there is like no doubt. You know, we even saw in the last 4 years the I guess bigotry and hatred that still exists, but also see just a shift of so many people opening up their minds to see like that true diversity and to see the value in that. And I'm curious when like you saying that you know women are have a harder time breaking out is it one part like they're not included in some of the backroom conversations, some of the you
I
know like
think that,
handshaky types, you know.
yeah, I think it's starting to be better, but I do think that's why. And also, like, I mean, it's also education, it's also money. Like, it comes
Mm,
down to money and whatever, because who's gonna get the like good grades, and who's gonna go to college, and who's gonna be able to be an intern that's unpaid, and who is going to actually read these books first, you know?
right.
And it turns out, well, like, white men are at the top of the food chain, and like they have like the ability to get good grades and go to school, like college, and learn all the rating stuff. And they have, if you have money, like you can do an unpaid internship in
Hmm.
college or whatever, and like you're set, like that's what you're gonna do, so you're ahead of the game. And the wage gap is real, like women do not get paid as much as men, so like
Yeah, and I think
you're,
that's being seen in the arts industry more and more when you look at
yeah,
movies,
exactly,
actors, actresses versus, you know, it's been an eye opener. I think for a lot of
yeah,
people who didn't think, even people like even women you would see as like incredibly powerful in the entertainment industry, to find out that they're still getting paid. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars
less,
less than their male
yeah,
counterparts. That's nuts. That's crazy. And
it's
that's one thing I
sad.
think I've seen in the music industry is realizing like for me, so for example, as I said, as I continue to learn and grow and stretch my understanding, there was a group of women in the arts world, like in our area, who started this like kind of like a woman's club music thing. And I remember thinking, I had this thought, I was like, man, it'd be cool if like guys started that club as well. And then like the next thought that popped in my head, I don't know from where that came from, but it was like, well, that's fucking every day, man. Like
Yeah,
it literally is, because I started thinking about all the guys that I naturally gravitate to, and all the agents who are guys, and all the people who run the festivals, who almost all of them are men, who it's a natural conversation. It's a cigar smoke. It's a, you know, a
yeah,
glass of whiskey, where I started realizing as I look around, I'm like, all too often women are not invited into that world. I think some from ignorance. I think there is some purposefulness behind it. Like some people who are just like, oh, I don't want them involved, which is still it's sad to see. And but I think ignorance drives a lot of it, and that kind of opened my eyes, like how how much harder it would be for a woman to be in the music industry. Obviously, you're in the literary world, but I'm imagining some of those things are
yeah,
the same. To like to see like they're just not invited. They're not invited to that table, and it's like hell yeah. When I started seeing that group again, I was like, they created their own damn table and they're making it happen, and that's awesome. But
yeah.
that's cool. But I do think the industry needs to continue to open up and invite everyone to the table.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I agree. But since we're not, like, yeah, if you don't see the novel on the shelf, you create it, you
Create
make
your
it
own.
yourself. So,
Exactly.
like, you're gonna help your fellow sisters out or whatever.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's huge. There's one thing I noticed looking through what you do. It seems like the idea of development is a big deal to you, like helping artists develop their own ideas. Like it sounds, and maybe I'm just ignorant to the editing world. I thought of an editor as I just come in and edit it and kind of fix your construction a little bit. But it sounds
Some
like
people,
you like to be heavily involved in that creative
I
process when
do.
you can.
When I
What
was
drives
a
that for you?
student, I don't know. I think because I have a writing background, because I was a writer and I gave up writing because it's really hard to be a writer and an agent, for me at least.
I
I
imagine.
know people are, I know they have successful careers, both as agents and writers, but personally, I just couldn't do it. So I really enjoy the creative aspect, like collaborating, you say developing or whatever. And yeah, like I think I have a really keen sense of what's good and what's not. And then some people that are rejected listening to that are like, screw you. But um, I
They're like,
have a really good, like, I'm Mr. Rogers of your literary neighborhood. Like, I am
I love that.
going to give you a really good foundation for your career. And you need this foundation first to fly off and do your own thing and be really successful. Like I had worked with that author that made the New York Times for 10 years before that happened.
Damn,
And
that's
then it
amazing.
happened. uh, and I was like, well, fly away. You're fine now. Like,
You
you're
go on,
good.
go on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like that. Like, and plus, I come from this background of like beat poets, and William Burroughs did this whole thing called the cut up, or his technique was the cut up
I'm not familiar
technique,
with that. I've checked
which
that out.
Kid A, like I think Tom York on the Kid A album in
Okay,
Riyadh, he like use that technique. He like single lines from songs he wrote, he would cut up and put them in a hat and then draw from the hat. And that
nice.
would be the order of the song. And I think Al Jorgensen from Ministry credits a lot of his influence in sampling to the
Hmm,
beat movement, to Burroughs. And so I feel this similar way, like the way I edit, I almost feel like a DJ. Like
I
I
love
know
it.
some DJs are gonna be like, screw you. But like kind of like I'm not totally a DJ, guys, but I do take this one perfect book or whatever, I'll read it. I will like make their page 80 to 30 or 30 to
Right.
80. And I will like say, oh, this line is really great. Can you expand on this? Can you do it here? Can the scene with grandma come earlier than later? Just develop your stories more. And I really think I speak that language. Like I know the process. I know that the journey is long and it's frustrating, and it's good to have some like key info. And that's what I provide, that's what's lacking. And so
Mhm.
I felt like I needed to do that with my job.
That's awesome. It's funny you said the DJing piece because, and you had mentioned that you listened to the Billie Jean podcast, and
Yeah.
where we were talking about. I remember in that podcast we were talking about the idea of what true, like the art of DJing, and how some people just want to hit play, but there is an art form to it. Or you see
Yeah.
big DJs like Avicii, who takes a song. I think it was Leon Bridges did the "Wake Me Up." And I don't know if you ever heard that original song, but it's a stripped down acoustic song. But then he made it this massive dance song and created, like, he brought different things out of the song that
Yeah,
I'm assuming the original writer didn't even see in it, and that could be a powerful,
exactly.
powerful gift.
Yeah, I would say don't count DJs out. I think it's a total art form.
Yeah, when done
Like,
well, when done well.
yeah, I think even editing is an art form, and like it deserves its own thing. Like it's, I'm not saying we're like in the category of Oscars, but like Oscars, they did things for like best trailer and like whatever, you might win something there.
Right.
Like, because as an editor, you do take this one perfect piece, and yeah, it's perfect and somebody's baby, but you infuse your own like vibe into it. I know that I have told authors random stories about my life or what advice my mom gave to me one time or whatever. And I've seen it in their work. And I'm like, there I am. That's me. And like you get thanked in the back of the book in the acknowledgement page. And it's a thrill. It's nice to be acknowledged. It's nice to have someone say, hey, you worked on my book and you made it better. And that's why I'm here. That's
It
what it
reminds me it reminds me of the producer role in the music world.
Yeah.
Actually, my last interview was with the producer here based in Kansas City. The band I used to tour with, we worked with a producer based out of Nashville, and it was like this partnership. I thought of it as a partnership. The more we gained trust with each other, because it's like yeah, I would send him like this. I would think of it as skeleton almost of a song, start to finish, and then he would send me back this whole new like approach to it that in a way it was like we got to the point where it was the things that I wanted but didn't know I wanted, but he put it in there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think you describing that sounds like editors operate the same way, or some, maybe some editors.
Some do, yeah. I think a lot do, but I don't really know like their thought process and what they do for the book other than what I do, what I
Right.
hear from other writers. And that is like jaded and cynical, and they have their own spin on things. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's you got to be yeah, producers you can meet those folks too. And that's in our world there's like engineers who are the ones like they put the mics, they dial everything in, they record it, and producers will sometimes do both roles. But it seems like a lot of people just stop there. Like and maybe that's the same thing for you guys where like an editor just fix grammar, fix this, fix that, but
some
you could go
editors
that
do
extra
that
step.
too. Yeah, I like doing developmental reads for people, which is like a bigger edit than just your line edit and your grammar and whatever. Like, I like going into a story and tearing it apart, like saying, oh, this character and this character could melt into one character, and then this can happen, and let's make it this way. I remember reading like a book, was retelling the story of Hades and Persephone,
Mhm.
like in the underworld and whatever. But the way it was told, it was like this cute rom com and funny. And I was like, what would be great is if this book were also like my best friend's wedding with Julia Roberts, like that movie.
And that's a
And I was
very
like,
unique take on that subject.
yeah,
That's
I was like, hey, let's do it because you have these two sisters that are not friends, and one's like Julia, one's like Cameron. And for some reason, I know this movie like the back of my hand. I don't know why, but something about this movie, like I watch it a lot. I don't know why, but I do. And so I like described like to a T, like why I feel so passionate these two
right.
projects should mesh. And she was like, okay, we'll try it. And there was another project where it was like people looking down on somebody in heaven and whatever, like how this one character like marionettes his family after he dies, like
Interesting.
to do stuff. I was like, but he keeps messing up. He gets so many chances or whatever. I was like, you know what would be great is like the Three Little Bears. Like, you remember the classic story? So let's meld the Three Little Bears with this heaven, like old guy dying, and he gets his chances in heaven to fix his family. And I was like, this will work. So yeah, I have weird ideas. Come to me if you want weird ideas.
But
Throw
that
them.
is, and that is the key to creativity, is being able to connect to different things. That's one reason I love rap. I listen to rap a ton. I'm not a rapper. I'm horrible at it. I tried it once in college and I thought it was good, but it was bad, really bad. Anyways, but I love rap, and especially the ones like lyrically they start pulling, like Eminem is brilliant at this, Joyner Lucas, like they pull all these different things but put them together to say yet another thing. And it's that can be so cool, and it points out the power of collaboration, because
Yeah.
our creativity comes from all the experiences we've had, all the things we love. Like, for you it was did you said My Big Fat Greek Wedding, was that the movie?
Oh no, my
What
best
was it?
friend.
My Best Friend's Wedding. I don't know why I put Big Fat Green. So My Best Friend's Wedding, like for me, it's Interstellar is the one that I keep going back to. So it's almost become like a visual Bible to me in a way.
Yeah.
But it's like we all see things in just a new way. And if you can spin the cup like creatively in the collaborative process, it's like, hey, we're talking about the same thing, but let's just look on this
Yeah,
side, and then
exactly.
something like beautiful comes out of that. I love the creative process, especially in writing. I love when I get to the end of it and the recording's about to go out and I don't even feel like it's fully my song. Like I feel like I can step back and say, that's a good song. Not because I'm like prideful and arrogant, but because I know it's like different hands have helped shape it. And but I definitely have my own ideas. Anyone who's worked with me in the past, like I can get pretty tenacious about my own ideas, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I want the best ideas to win and grow. And
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I'm not here to make a bad book. I'm not here to make your baby like into a troll, like
I love
that is
that.
not my intention. And like I want the best. I want you to be able to put your best foot forward. So I'm trying my hardest to find certain things that will work. You may hate my ideas. They may not work. And that is okay because the process is all about trial and error. And
Right.
some writers get really upset when things don't work, but it's like that's life. Things are
Hmm.
not always going to work. And maybe some accidents are happy, like they do happen and they make things good and make things feel
Absolutely.
better. Like I wouldn't say my stroke is a happy accident, but it certainly made me grow up in a lot of ways. It made
Right.
me like focus on reading more, and it actually my eyes were not doing so hot in the hospital. And so actually reading got like my work
Mm.
got me through it, like helped my vision, helped
And
me
kind of
correct
strengthen it.
myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the your own work like rebuilt like your
Yeah.
processes that were going on visually and mentally.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think I was ever like dumb in the hospital, but they did say my intelligence got better. I'm not sure what that's all about because, hello, I'm smart. So,
You're like, no, that did not get adjusted. I wish I could remember his name right now. There's a guitarist, an old jazz guitarist. Man, I'm really botching this story, but I think he had a stroke. Something happened to where he lost his memory and forgot, like he forgot how to play. He actually used his own records with his guitar and taught himself how to replay by his old records that he couldn't remember. And
wow.
I was like, wow, to see your own art pull yourself out of the darkness of the ailments that you're going through. That's huge. There's
Exactly.
I love that. I can talk about like the creative process forever. But there was three more things I wanted to get to before we cut out. There was something you actually shared. It wasn't on my list, but it was interesting because it resonated with me. You just shared, I think, yesterday, and it's a meme where it says, "My son just showed me something he
Oh
made and
yeah,
asked."
the like and love.
Yeah, I love it. Where he said, "Okay, my son just showed me something he made and asked, do you like it or do you love it?" And those are the only options I'm giving people from now on. And you mentioned about the subjectivity of creativity, um, and yeah, it just resounded with me. I'm curious how it resounded with you.
The way I see it is that, yes, writing is subjective, and like a lot of Asians run around saying, I want to fall in love. So, really, it's not like a rejection or a pass or whatever you want to call it. It's not bad. It's just they didn't love it.
Right.
They liked it. It's kind of like, okay, you've had a lot of girlfriends and you probably liked them, but you
Mhm.
didn't love all of them. You only loved a few of them,
Right.
or maybe you loved one of them, or if your wife is listening, you only loved her. Like, like it's that. It's to me, it's like, yes, I have a past of boyfriends, and liked most of them. I mean, most of them, but I liked them. And there was only like a few that maybe I fell truly in love with, or one that I truly fell
Right.
in love with. And one day you're gonna find that too with your book. You're gonna find an agent that like truly loves your
Hmm.
writing. And so therefore it's kind of like, you probably don't watch The Real Housewives, but like,
I
I
don't.
have, and I'll tell you, The Real Housewives of New York City, like there's a character named, well, a character. She's a real woman named Ramona Singer, who I am not the biggest fan of, but I love her season 8 tagline where she says, I'm an acquired taste. And if you don't like me, acquire some taste. And it's kind of like that's how I feel. Like if you
I
don't
love it.
like me or you don't like my books, then acquire some taste because I'm an acquired taste.
That's awesome, and I love that analogy of the dating, and the like versus love. I I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think that's a piece too. It's like even going back to that analogy of like dating, where I think people see in the dating world. I know I learned in the dating world where I I need to be exactly who I am, and kind of like that. It's like if they don't have that taste for me, that acquired taste for me, then
Yeah.
just keep moving on. And I think in the creative process, it's so easy to want to pander, to create something uh, just for people's attention, as
Yeah.
opposed to the very genuine, authentic thing, and then simply accepting when people don't like it. I think that's why I don't even know if I'm making sense because I actually just read it. I saw you shared it, right before coming into this, but. I think it resounded with me where just give people the options. Do you like it or do you love it? And
Yeah.
let that sit. And that's
And
huge.
move on. Don't like drink monsoon like from RuPaul's Drag Race said, like water off a duck's back. And it's true. It's like just let it roll off. Like brush it off, move on. Like
Right.
who cares? I mean, I know it stings. I know passing stings and rejection hurts and feeling bad. You can feel bad for yourself. You can throw yourself a pity party, but there comes a point where you just get up and you move on.
Right.
Because what? You can't do that forever, like you're gonna allow someone else to say like you're not good enough. Like, come on. I mean, I got really comfortable with saying no to people. Like,
Yeah.
that's what agents do. You have to say no. And it's like, don't take it personally. If I'm wrong, prove it to me. And
Right.
you know what? Like, yeah, say screw you, Amy, or F you, or whatever, and move on, because that's what I would do. Like, I like my authors. I love my job, but I was always the agent that was like, my authors will beat up your authors because, like, I've
But that's
got
the
your
kind of
back.
agent you want. Like I've had different agents and different managers like throughout my life. And there's some where you realize they're not really, you're just one little piece of your little cog in their machine that they created.
Yeah, I'm
And
really
that's not
loyal.
fun.
I'm really loyal. I'm really dedicated. And if you come to work with me, like, just as I was an agent, now if you come to work with me and I'm your editor, like, I'm your editor. I've got your back. You can always come to me a year from now and complain about whatever. Like, I know the industry. I know, like, the ups and downs, and I have heard it all. So yeah. And I like to gossip, so let's do it.
That's awesome. Well, the last two questions, it's the whole center of the show, the live and create piece. And so I'm wondering, the first one there, how at this point in your life, how would you define living a great life?
Right now, I would like to probably have a house and just live simply. Like, I'm really big on that. I don't need tons of money. I don't need a lot of fame. I am really unconventionally conventional. Like in a lot of
I
ways,
love that.
like
Unconventionally conventional.
yeah, in a lot of ways, like, I know that the American dream is to have a partner and have a house and have your picket fence and whatever. And I am the same way. I want those things, but my house could be a boathouse. It could be a bus. It can be a shipping container. I'm really big on tiny houses right now. So I could live in a tiny house. And my partner is, my boyfriend. And my dog is my baby. And, your baby could be an animal or adopted, or like you can give naturally birthing
Right.
your kid. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, love is love, family is family. Like, do what you want. And to me, I just want to live life with a garden. Maybe like a vegetable garden would be killer. And
That's
a
why I want
pet.
habaneros. I suck at gardening, but I wish I didn't because I want like fresh habaneros and fresh like serrano
Yeah.
peppers at all times. That would be amazing.
See, my husband is better off at gardening. So I'm like, yeah, get
Nice.
in there, garden. I'll read, I'll edit, I'll make money, and you can garden. And, like, it's great in Oregon because things grow out here. Like, everything grows out here, and it's like all natural, and there's tons of rain, and it's a writer's paradise because we have so much coffee and fog. And I loved, before this stupid virus came, I loved like sitting at the coffee shop. I loved like reading all day. And yeah, I've kind of felt like my dad was dropping me off at the mall and coming to pick me up. Because, like, that would happen. He would drop me off at like 8 a.m. and then pick me back up at like 3. Yeah, it felt like that. Because, I don't drive. So,
But for me, and it sounds like maybe this is kind of where you're at, where I definitely have goals like financially where I want things to go, but it seems like the further I go, even in this industry, I had to start asking, what can I live without as well? Because
yeah.
in that simplicity, that's why I like that unconventionally conventional, where a bigger house wasn't necessarily bringing us joy as a family, and so we ended up downsized. I was sharing where we went to like a townhome, and those making those kind of decisions, it's like, you know what? Some things that you think you wanted end up coming at a higher cost. Almost like where you shared earlier, where if you started your own agency, it would have come at the cost of your own creativity. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's no longer worth it. And it's like, can we be
Yeah.
happy with
So
what we have as well?
when I had my stroke, like I said, you don't sweat the small stuff. So yeah, I feel like I've always had like this punk rock dirt bag whatever mentality. But like now, like I'm embracing like not my dirt bag punk rock mentality, but like I'm learning to be like open it to messiness in my life, or if I'm not as organized, that's okay. Like I am okay. Like the world is not gonna fall. I'm not Chicken Little. The sky is not like palm comfy. It's gonna be okay.
I laugh because I can relate. Part of my story is I've dealt with depression and OCD, like to the point where there's seasons in my life where I didn't really want people to touch me, and like almost
Yeah.
locked in my own room kind of thing. And part of it was just learning to let go. Part of it is like trying to almost rewire the brain through like cognitive, uh, whatever we called it, recovery or something like that. But but yeah, it's like learning to let go and like, hey, the world won't end if this thing doesn't happen, and just
I
breathe and
used to
enjoy it.
be
So
super organized about that. Like before I left for college, like everything was meticulous and everything was great. Like I had to have my room be perfect. And then I ended up going to college in Boulder. Shout out to Boulder because,
right,
like,
yeah,
but I went to a Buddhist college in Boulder, Colorado, learned letting go. And I was like, I never really got it until later on in life. Like, I was like, wow, my roots or whatever are really showing. Like, this is where I belong. This is who I am. Like, yeah. And I think that's why I can say live simply, and why I can downsize and not care about money. I mean, yes, anti-capitalist and anarchist here, but like I also have this background in Buddhism that is interesting and different to a lot of like other people and what they
right.
think,
Sounds like it planted a seed for you that's continued
for
to
sure.
propel you down life. Now, the last question: how in this season, how would you define creating great things?
I don't know because I don't think about doing great things because I think it hinders my process.
Hmm,
Like if I'm putting pressure on myself to create something great, I'm gonna like be static. I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna like stop what I'm doing. So I don't put that kind of pressure on me. I say, okay, it will be great when I'm done. And with your help or whatever, this book is gonna rock. And it's gonna be awesome. And we're gonna sell it and it's gonna be fantastic. But let's not worry about like the what ifs in this scenario. Like,
hmm,
what if I found an agent? What if we own us up? What will happen if blank? Like I don't think about these things as much as like maybe I should, but I don't because it does make me feel weird. It makes me
right.
freak out.
No, I get that. I definitely
Yeah.
do. That's it reminds me of Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, and where he are you familiar with that book at all?
A
Uh,
little, I know it, but I've not read it.
and he just drives home basically all the pitfalls that artists can get wrapped up in. And he talks about this concept of simply showing up, and you don't write to write the best thing that day. You write like, I have 4 hours today, I'm going to write, and that's what I'm going to do. And when that 4 hours is up, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go walk, and I'm going to think through the characters, and then I'll come back later and edit, and have this process and this consistency that eventually drives to hopefully these great works. but we get so wrapped up in making
Yeah.
things big or great, and then we freeze, like you kind of talked
Yeah.
about.
Like
And
perfection, procrastination, it's all like the same,
it
like
is.
maybe like backwards, like front back, but it makes you freak out. It makes you so paralyzed. But I've got to do great. I've got to make this art great. I mean, if you look on my Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you see like the collages I make, like a feral girl and whatever, they're all messy and they are not great or pieces of art, but they're awesome. And I love them. And like they make me happy and they make other people happy. And that's all that matters. And it's really funny. Like, man, it's just like, oh, it goes to show you don't need very many followers to be as busy as you are, because no one follows me. I have no friends on Facebook.
She's like, on Facebook. That's, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't really have any friends, and that is probably why I'm so great at what I do, because I will throw myself into your work, because I'm not going to brunch on Sunday or hanging out at the bar like I used to be on Friday.
The mimosas are not getting in the way for you. That's
yeah, right. Like, I'm not doing anything but work, so you could call that bad or sad, but it's productive and it's good for the client and it's good,
right.
I guess, for my bank account, but I don't really
Well, and I
care
think the
about
part of
that.
it is for each person. Like I'm wired to go. Like I am wired to just run at things. And it's like over the last year, I slowed down. So for a season, it actually did bring me joy, help bring some healing, some understanding of myself and how I want life to look. But I started realizing like, no, I like to push the gas down on the pedal and just go at it. And that does bring me joy as long as it's within parameters. Like I can go too hard and then, crash. That's a whole other
Yeah.
podcast. But I think the big piece, and you've talked a lot about, is just knowing who you are and being okay with like, this is how I want to live life. And it brings me joy. And it sounds like you're on that journey of building that joy for you and art that will bring joy to other people, which is awesome. And as we wrap up, let everyone know where they can go find you and find your work and connect with you as well, if they're an author or someone dreaming about this world.
Well, I'm on Twitter. I'm really accessible. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and you can like rate me at feralgirlbooks@gmail.com. And yeah, I'm open, I'm honest, I'm really blunt, and I will tell you like if we can work together, and hopefully we can. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks for making the time today.
of
And
course.
thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.